Hello and good morning on your Thursday. I'm Geoenvironmental Atmosphere Forecaster Andrew Fleck. This is just a new segment that we're trying to implement into Geoenvironmental Atmosphere. This is going to include taking some of those very lengthy posts and putting them almost into a video discussion that you can see yourself visually. We'll sit here, we'll highlight things, we'll talk about it, and we'll give you those quick answers on the go. In this morning and afternoon Thursday's video, we're going to talk about the 0Z European, what it's outputting. We're going to take this select model only, and we're just going to show you the pattern that it has now and the pattern it's going to have in about a week to 10 days. And folks in the east, if you think it's cold already, it's going to get even that much more colder come this weekend. And where cold comes, snow also is not far behind. Now, we're not going to talk about storms, but we're going to talk about a pattern that looks very good into this weekend and into next week. And that means Thanksgiving. That is followed by Christmas, and I do like the pattern that's setting up just in time for winter. So looking at the 500 millibar heightened vorticities, including winds from the 0Z European, we're going to first show you not much going on currently here as of our Thursday. We just have a lot of different small short-waving energy in the central plains. We have obviously one area of some snow and some rain going across Minnesota through Wisconsin. The second area of some ice and rain going through the central plains, Kansas. You're under, I believe, a winter storm advisory. You're watch for some ice there. You're going to have to take it easy, especially later Thursday and Friday. And even as far south as northern New Mexico, and even potentially we're watching the Texas Panhandle, you might also have to worry about that later Thursday and Friday at Geoenvironmental Atmosphere. We're going to have a post on that specifically with some maps included of what you can expect. Be sure to tune into that. But currently, if we're going to look at the overall pattern, what we're going to really generally show you is European at this time does not have much. But that is all going to change. So we have a lot of this going on up here that I'm highlighting. And this is predominantly what we call, or what I like to call the AO area. This is the Arctic Oscillation area. When this goes negative, it's almost like in Canada, that area is going to open its gates. And finally it's going to migrate that cold air onto and into the United States borders. And it's going to be a very cold one. And we've been waiting on that. And really much of November, there hasn't been much cold air or that very consistent cold air. But that is all going to sink southward into the States this coming weekend, and it may hold on for quite a while. Now that's in one area to watch. Our second area is down here off the southwest coast. And we're going to show you, especially along this video, this southern subtropical jet stream is going to start becoming very active. Now, obviously, I have our northern up here and our southern out here, and that's where our storms come from, and that's going to be number 2 that we're going to talk about here in this video. So this is, again, what is currently happening. Now, let's switch forward. Let's go 24 hours. As you can see here, 24 hours, you have a very little interesting area, again, where I made a very quick hint analysis tip in our winter forecast that when you get disturbances off the southwest coast, okay, normally in a week it's exiting somewhere along the east coast, okay? So as we kind of go and flip forward here more and more, you're going to see that this is just going to straggle out here, and it's going to give wind and it's going to give rain to the southwest. And here again, now you're starting to see some colder air by this weekend invading into now the upper plains through the mid-Atlantic and northeast. This is a very deep trough. And again, as I've said, you have the cold air there, and there's a storm not far behind. That's what you got to start looking at, some very interesting feedback, where the models are placing a storm, where it's interacting with cold air, or if it isn't. And if there's cold air there, in simple terms, there could also be snow there. And we're not making any assumptions, we're just looking at the pattern. So, with that being the weekend, we're going to flip forward and continue to do so, and we're going to see that this area off the southwest coast continues to now start pushing eastward. And now you still have a bit of that sinking trough, very diagonal sinking trough out of the upper plains to the east and into the mid-Atlantic and northeast. And that's going to continue through Monday as we're looking at here. And you can just see it down here, this brighter purple. Okay, is a higher concentrated vorticity. There's obviously a storm being indicated down here. whereas you have your trough moving down here. And this is going to, as I said, what comes in toward the southwest coast is going to exit somewhere on the east coast. And this pattern really gives way for that. And we're going to continue to just kind of train through and then show you by Tuesday next week, colder air, storm, it's all coming together right in here. Now, again, these models still have quite a lot to decipher yet, but they're looking at a scenario that does, again, look very nice for a solution for whether it's a rainy storm or a snowy storm. That's the question. And rather, if that storm continues to meet where that cold air is, a slower pattern or a more progressive pattern, that's our determinant right now. If it's a very progressive pattern, well then what you have here is a very quick pattern. You have the storm coming in very quick and exiting off the southeast coast. You have a very slower pattern. The storm actually interacts with that colder air up here, then you have something that goes more up into this direction. And again, if it interacts with that cold air, you have yourself something. So what timeline are we looking at? Well, we're not looking at making any real forecast here. We're sharing you behind the scenes what we're thinking right now. And what we would suggest is, with where the pattern's going and where it's beginning to enter by this weekend, that including cold air, that including disturbance off the southwest coast, with all that being said and done here, approaching the weekend, if that storm is there and that cold air is still there on the models, we would have a week. And nearing Thanksgiving, that's how impressive and special this just may be. Maybe not a good thing, but a very impressive thing. This could very well set up as a rainy storm or a snowy storm somewhere along the East Coast. Not to go and bargain and say there's going to be one, but you are showing and you are having lots of different models, whether synoptic, rather meso, showing some type of energy being put where the euro right here as of late 0Z has. And that's what our focus is later down the next week to 7 days. Now I'll continue to scan here into Tuesday night, Thursday, and on. And as you can see right now, the European, the GFS models, they're making this a more progressive pattern. They're taking whatever is left out here, and they're pretty much pushing it off the southeast coast. It doesn't interact with this colder air, because this colder air, this trough is not dig as deep, so it tends to be more of a rainy and a more southeast type of storm. But who's to say that can't change? It can change, and we're at Geo-Environmental Atmosphere going to continue to keep an eye on that very thing. And so, again, this really ends, the last frame here for next Wednesday to show you that there is a storm on the models, and we are watching closely. But, I mean, if you really are a big avid storm watcher and you like big storms, I think this is a great pattern for you. I very much do believe it, because here you are, you have another similar trait of the storm down here entering the west coast. You have a lot of energy here off the southwest coast. You have plenty of cold air up here continuing to regenerate. And I mean, I would say the next 2 weeks there's going to be some type of storm along the East Coast, whether it's Thanksgiving and it's rain, or it exits southeast, or hits the mid-Atlantic. I think there's one chance. I think your second chance is maybe opening early December. I think there are opportunities out there, and I think if you thought November was maybe a slow November and one to be very dry, I think by the end of November to beginning December, things are happening in a more winter-like position at this current time, and will, I believe, into December and further on. So that's what we have here, and I do appreciate you listening to the video that we have and we have spoken about. We will give you plenty more coverage on what we think about the storm, but before we can even go in that direction, we're going to talk about that colder air, because it is going to get frigid. We're not even talking about temps potentially out of the freezing mark in the mid-Atlantic and Northeast by potentially Saturday and Sunday. More coverage on that, more coverage on the Central Plains wintry mix Thursday and Friday, and of course, again, if things do continue to look the way they do on those weather models for Thanksgiving, that's one you bet this team will be on. So for now, you enjoy the weather, and you continue to visit Geo-Environmental Atmosphere at www.geoea.org. I hope you all have a great rest of your Thursday.